Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Arundhati Ramanan and these are the headlines that we're tracking for you this evening. The Indian rupee sinks to a record low for the 7th consecutive session. Sensex and Nifty end flat after a range-bound session with thin volumes. India's mutual fund industry is wrapping up an action-packed 2024. Money raised by new fund offers hit a record high. Sectoral and thematic funds received the highest inflows. Associations representing India's exports industry meet Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman ahead of the budget. NASSCOM bats for lighter taxation environment for global capability centres, while the trade promotion body wants the interest equalisation scheme to continue for the next 3 years. India's engineering exports body bats for more exposure to the MSME sector. 38 people are killed after an Azerbaijan Airlines plane travelling from Baku to Chechnya crashes in Kazakhstan. 29 people survived the crash. Reuters reports the crash occurred shortly after drone strikes hit southern Russia. Russia launches missile and drone attacks targeting Ukraine's energy infrastructure. Ukraine's Zelensky terms the attack on Christmas Day as inhumane. Ukraine claims to have shot down over a dozen drones. Dozens killed in Israeli attacks, including 5 journalists in central Gaza when their vehicle was attacked at a refugee camp. Doctors say 3 Palestinian babies have died due to hypothermia in southern Gaza as temperatures plummet. Also on the show, Tamil Nadu's Nagapattinam remembers the nightmare 20 years ago since history's deadliest tsunami unleashed towering waves that ravaged regions across 15 nations. Those were the headlines that we're tracking for you this evening, but let's start with all the action from the money market. The Indian rupee weakened to yet another record low in today's trade as the dollar index remained above the 108 mark. Month-end dollar purchases by importers also put pressure on the currency. The rupee has now hit a record low in 7 consecutive trading sessions. The real effective rate PF that the rupee has breached 108, which also is a record low. On to all the stock market action. Sensex and Nifty ended flat after a range-bound session. Mid-caps and bank stocks were also flat. Volumes remain thin thanks to year-end holidays. The December F&O series wrapped up today with Nifty posting losses. This is the 3rd consecutive series where indices have ended in the red for the first time in 21 months. As we approach the end of 2024, it's time to look back at the performance of India's mutual fund industry. It was an action-packed year for the sector, with its assets surging by a whopping 17 lakh crore rupees. New fund offers provided the cherry on the cake. Money raised via NFOs hit a record high this year. Sonal Bhutra gets us a snapshot of what has been a magnificent year for mutual funds.
2024 saw a lot of action in the mutual fund space, and funds raised via NFOs has definitely been one of them. Let's look at the numbers. Funds raised by NFOs or new fund offers stood at 1.04 lakh crores in 2024. This is still the month of November, and we have more NFOs in the month of December that has not been accounted for here. That is an uptick of 63% versus funds raised in 2023 at around 63,800 crore rupees. Now, this was slightly lower than 2022. That time, the number was 67,336 crore rupees. But 2021 also saw massive inflows. This was double the amount versus 2020, when the amount raised was around 53,700 crore rupees. Now, if we talk about the number of NFOs, 2022 still tops the list. So far in 2024, we've seen 205 NFOs which have been issued till November. This compares with 212 in 2023, 246 in 2022, 140 in 21, and around 81 in 2020. Some of the categories that saw high flows: multi-cap funds getting in 6,300 crore rupees of money, and other ETFs at around 1,400 crore rupees. But the real star of this year had to be sectoral funds. 40 sectoral or thematic funds have seen the highest flows that we've seen in the last 5 years. Sectoral funds garnered around 67,772 crore rupees in 2024 so far, which is more than the flows in this space from 2020 to 2023. In this period, sectoral funds garnered around 52,165 crore rupees. This is via 59 NFOs. Even index funds actually saw a lot of interest. 76 NFOs in the index fund space, raising 12,147 crore rupees, which is the highest that we've seen in at least 5 years. Index funds have always seen a lot of interest, and more so in the last 3 years, with more focus on passive investing. In 2023, 53 index funds were launched, garnering around 2,700 crore rupees. This compares with 85 in 2022. And these numbers were very low in 2021 and 2020, as you can see on your screen. Interestingly, no mid-cap funds were launched in 2023 and 2024. This space did see a big rally, but did not see a new product here, but saw massive flows in the existing names. Also, only one small-cap fund was launched in 2024. And now we are towards the end of 2024, and December also has seen a lot of action in the NFO space. But will this continue in 2025? Will there be new products by mutual funds houses to diversify their portfolio? Well, time will tell.
Absolutely. Many thanks for those details, Sonal. Oil prices inched up on the back of more fiscal stimulus in China. Earlier this week, China announced plans to ramp up fiscal support for consumption next year. A decline in U.S. crude inventories and expectations of a jump in fossil fuel demand under Donald Trump's administration also supported oil prices. The big international story, 38 people dead after an Azerbaijan Airlines plane traveling from Baku to Chechnya crashed in Kazakhstan. The plane was carrying 62 passengers and 5 crew members. 29 people miraculously survived the crash that was caught on camera. The incident occurred in Kazakhstan after the plane veered hundreds of kilometers off its planned route. Unverified video of the crash appeared to show the plane bursting into flames as it hit the ground. Passengers who are bloodied and bruised could be seen stumbling from a piece of the fuselage that had remained intact. A Reuters report notes that the crash occurred shortly after drone strikes hit southern Russia. The black box was recovered from the wreckage, which may have provided some clues into the incident as an investigation is underway. Russia launched missile and drone attacks targeting Ukraine's energy infrastructure on Christmas Day. At least 6 people were wounded. Ukraine's Air Force detected over 180 missiles and drones and intercepted many of them. Ukrainian President Zelensky has accused Russia of making a conscious choice and termed the attack as inhumane. US President Joe Biden and British PM Keir Starmer also condemned the attack. At least 10 people were killed and more than a dozen were injured in Israel's latest airstrikes on Gaza yesterday. Hamas and Israel traded blame over their failure to reach a ceasefire agreement. More than 45,000 Palestinians have been killed in the war since it began in October of 2023. The UN Agency for Palestine Refugees said that 1 child was killed every hour in Gaza since the conflict began. And back home, the government has appointed Arunish Chawla as the new Revenue Secretary. The 1992 batch IAS officer has succeeded Sanjay Malhotra, who was appointed as the RBI governor earlier this month. Prior to his appointment, Chawla served as Pharmaceutical Secretary. Amit Agarwal, the CEO of Unique Identification Authority of India, has been tapped to replace him as the new Pharma Secretary. Associations representing India's exports industry met Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman ahead of the budget on the 1st of February. Shivani Bajaj has all of those details.
Yes, the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman held the discussions with key industry bodies today, focusing on measures to boost trade, exports and India's global competitiveness. A major point raised was the need for better tax framework for global capability centers and smoother implementation of the advance pricing agreement to support businesses operating internationally. Now, the industry also highlighted the significant opportunity for India in the United States market amid an impending tariff war, suggesting that additional government funding for marketing Indian products in the US could help unlock around $25 billion in export potential over the next 3 years. Now, there were also calls to extend the interest equalization scheme for 3 years to support exporters, while the need for a global shipping line was also emphasized, which could reduce transport costs for India and bring substantial savings. Also, industry bodies also said that the support for MSMEs was crucial. It was another key area which the demands for increasing funding under the Market Access Initiative, the MIA scheme, to help small businesses gain global exposure. Additionally, the industry recommended energy audit allocations to improve efficiency and reduce costs for smaller enterprises.
So there are there are multiple concerns, but we talked about 2 major ones. First one is around our global capability centers, what we call GCCs, the ability for them to have better taxation regime, which could be in the ways of safe harbor rules that we do for the taxation. The second one is around advanced pricing agreements. So we wanted some help. It was already announced in the last budget, but we just required the government to implement those schemes in the right way.
We raised the issue that because of the impending tariff war, India has huge opportunity into the US, and we have also gone to a study where we have said that if government provides some little more focus on the marketing of Indian products in the US market, we can get an additional export of around $25 billion in next 3 years.
Interest subvention was one because 50% of our exporters are from the MSME sector. So we've asked for interest subvention. We've asked for more money under the MAI scheme for allowing us to carry our exporters abroad for reverse buyer-seller meet. We also had for energy audit, we needed for the MSME some support. So we've asked for that under the MAI scheme.
MobiKwik shares surged in trade after a block deal worth 118 crore rupees. 2.4% of one MobiKwik's equity changed hands at an average price of 635 rupees apiece. Buyers and sellers in the transaction are unknown. Remember, one MobiKwik made its debut on Dalal Street earlier this month. Ola Electric inaugurated 3,200 stores in a single day across India. This is 4 times its existing store count. The company, which came under scrutiny over the last few months over its after-sales services, now has an outlet presence in Tier 1 and Tier 2 cities as well. Sudarshan Kumar joins us now with the details. Sudarshan, Ola Electric turning a page as it expands beyond the metros. What more did they announce?
Ola Electric was in focus today after the company expands its store count to 4,000 with an addition of 3,200 new stores. The positive about these new stores is these stores are co-located with service centers. If you remember, over the past few months, company has been facing service-related issues. Even Consumer Affairs Ministry had served the company show cause notice. And apart from the store additions, company has also launched a beta version of an operating system and has named it Move OS 5. And some of the features this operating system include: first, group navigation, and second is live location sharing. And apart from this, company has made an interesting launch of limited edition of Ola S1 Pro Sona, and as per company, this is launched with real 24-karat gold-plated elements. But apart from these launches, one thing that has been in the focus for Ola is its falling market share. In FY25, in April month, its market share was 52%, and till 2 weeks ago, its market share had fallen to 18%. But in the last 2 weeks, it has made a minor improvement, and currently its market share stands at 20%. In today's trading session, the stock had opened with a gain of 6%, but at the end, it closed with a minor cut.
All right, Sudarshan, many thanks for those details. Now, ceremonies are being held across 15 nations in the Indian Ocean to mark 20 years since a deadly tsunami which killed over 2.2 lakh people. A 9.1 magnitude earthquake off the coast of Indonesia triggered a tsunami which devastated large parts of the Indian Ocean. In India, Tamil Nadu's Nagapattinam district was the worst hit, with nearly 6,000 people losing their lives.
The coastal town of Nagapattinam in southern India is scarred by tragedy. 20 years ago, on December 26, 2004, a magnitude 9.15 earthquake off the coast of Indonesia's Aceh province triggered an Indian Ocean tsunami. Having received no formal warning of the approaching waves, residents were left with no chance to escape. Local resident Ganda lost her husband and son in a split second.
When I hear the word tsunami, my whole body shivers at the thought of my husband and child.
The disaster killed more than 226,000 people in Indonesia, Sri Lanka, India, Thailand, and 9 other countries. About 6,000 people died in Nagapattinam alone. Millions have been spent since to create a vast network of seismic and tsunami information centres. Warning towers have been set up along India's coast, and the government has also put together a robust disaster management and early warning system. Here is J. Radhakrishnan, a former district collector.
Gave us an opportunity to reflect on what could be done better. There were no escape routes earlier. Buildings were not earthquake resistant or, for that matter, cyclone resistance. So when these were all, and in fact risk insurance was next to nil. So these were all built in during the rebuilding program.
Seaside houses in Nagapattinam have also been moved slightly further inland. Ganda now lives in one of them with her surviving son. Though a much safer and sturdier structure than her previous house, its concrete walls conceal a decades-long hurt and sorrow. We were happily living, me and my husband, along with our children, she says. Now we have a great house, but we are not happy because we lost my husband and child.
On that note, it is time for us to head into a short break. But coming up next, hotel owners in Mumbai likely to play moral police on New Year's Eve to urge patrons not to consume more than 4 large drinks. Details on the other side. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're still with us on Business 360. For all of you wishing to ring in the new year at a Mumbai restaurant with a glass of your favorite alcohol, here's an advisory that you may want to take note of. The Hotel and Restaurant Association of Western India has urged members to ensure that guests are urged not to consume more than 4 large pegs. The association feels that the initiative will help limit the instances of inappropriate behavior under the influence of alcohol. The Maharashtra government has granted permission for all-night New Year celebrations on the 31st. We are now joined by Pradeep Shetty, the president of the Hotel and Restaurant Association of Western India, which has initiated this move. Mr. Pradeep, thank you so much for taking time out and being here with us on the show today. You know, the new policy essentially says that the guests will be given a maximum of 4 large drinks, after which they will be urged not to consume any more alcohol. Is this an advisory to restaurants, or is this mandatory for all restaurants to follow? How will this work? Mr. Pradeep, I think you're on mute, so you'll have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, sorry. I'm saying neither of that is true. There is no advisory limiting. There is neither any direction from the government also. And we definitely don't want to spoil any celebrations. If you are referring to some newspaper article, I think this has been totally misquoted. So yes, there has been a advisory which speaks about responsible bartending, responsible celebrations. And there are a slew of measures that as a restaurateurs we are supposed to take, starting from checking if underage persons are consuming, and if somebody is inebriated, how do you take care of him? You offer valet services, offer drivers to send them back home, and etc., etc. But nothing on limiting the number of drinks the way you seem to have understood.
Right. So there's no limiting drinks. So restaurants are free to serve how many ever drinks they want to the people going to the restaurant at this point.
As long as you're able to hold your drinks, we are absolutely fine. If we find somebody who is unable to hold his drink or who is not in his good sense, then of course the manager or the bartender has to take a call on, that's where responsible celebration and responsible bartending comes, and for which we are advocating that we need to be doing our business. In fact, if you know, it's the only industry which is working during such time, then every other industry shuts down. So while we are looking forward to serve our guests, but we want to ensure that it is safe and responsible at the same time.
Right. So you're ensuring that all the activities that happen are safe and responsible. But you also just mentioned that, restaurants have been instructed to make arrangements to ensure that intoxicated guests get home safely, which also includes hiring designated drivers for those with cars and arranging transportation for those without, right? Such as booking an Ola or an Uber ride. Exactly. But how does one expect these restaurants to do this, considering there's just going to be so many people out on New Year's Eve?
So largely what happens is post the midnight is when everybody starts dissipating out. And by that time, you get a sense of how many people will need such services. And there are a lot of these drivers which are available on freelance basis. So a lot of restaurants are hiring these drivers, and these drivers are available for a cost. So what we do is we make them link up with these guests who want such drivers. Ola Ubers are obviously available. That's not a big deal to do it. In fact, we also hire additional valet services on those days. Cars can be left at the place, and people can go use any public transport. Or if the valets are there, they can also drop them back home. But practically speaking, this was done last year, and I think this year lot of bars and restaurants have geared up to give these additional. These are all services available for a cost, so it's not a problem at all.
Right, absolutely. So clarification there coming in, you can drink as long as you can hold your drink. There's no limitation on the number of drinks one can have. All right, Mr. Pradeep, thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Most welcome.
And with that, it is a wrap on this edition of Business 360. More news and updates coming up on the other side. Stay tuned.